Hello guys, so today I'm going to be reviewing 7 different Adams euphonium models. Adams E3 selected, E3 with heavy valve caps, E2 with heavy valve caps, E1, E1 selected sterling silver, E1 custom sterling with trigger, and E1 antique. So stay with me if you want to hear my opinion on Adams euphoniums. Before we start, I just wanted to remind you that dfmusicinc.com is giving all of my fans a 10% discount code for the JP Sterling, and Sterling instruments. So if you want to save up money on your purchases, type in the promo code, which is my YouTube channel name, Matones. You'll find the details in the description box below. Back to the topic. This past weekend I've tested most, if not all, the horns at the Washington D.C. Army Expo. I wrote down notes for every instrument I've tried to give you the most accurate feedback, and I spent about roughly 5 minutes on each instrument. My focus points were the tone quality and sensitivity to brightness, accuracy, or in other words, centering, tuning, valve quality, design, and of course the price. I apologize in advance for noisy recording environment. There were so many people testing stuff and playing, I couldn't do anything about it. I just wanted to give you at least a little glimpse of my experience playing. That being said, here's my evaluation of Adams euphoniums. E3 selected was the first model of Adams I've tried. I played this model before, so I kind of had a pretty good idea of what to expect in terms of the feel and sound. Nothing really surprised me at all, and I don't think this model has changed all that much since I last tried it a couple years ago, but for now, let's talk about the tone quality. The sound on E3 was pretty dark and warm, very much what you'd expect from European market-based instruments. It is very open and pure up until the point you start really pushing for that volume. That's where the projection and quality starts to suffer a little bit. I have to say though, E3 Selected definitely got a little better in this particular aspect, but I would be still slightly reluctant using it in a brass band or any larger group playing. I think it would be doing pretty well as a solo instrument when you stand in front of a group or play with a piano, but as soon as you turn away that bell or sit at the back row, I could easily see how projection could become an issue in those cases. The high notes were pretty full and open all the way up till concert Super G, and the only little detail that caught my attention was that the concert E flat, D, C sharp, C, and B below the stop were slightly stuffy in comparison to pedal notes, mid-range or high-range. Definitely not enough to say that these notes sounded bad, just slightly stuffier, less centered and not as open and warm as some of the other notes in other registers. But to sum it up, generally I thought the sound was pretty consistent in quality all the way through ranges with exception of louder dynamics. The next thing I was looking for in the instruments was the accuracy and centering, and that is obviously the strong point of E3 and generally Adams euphoniums. The notes are extremely centered. As soon as you press the valves, the pitch just sinks in with little effort at all. Even the notes which are actually usually stuffy on euphoniums, at least most euphoniums, such as concert F sharp above the stab, which is 2 on free combo, and a high B, which is either 1-2 or 2 on euphoniums. E3 accuracy and centering for sure gives an extremely comfortable, enjoyable playing experience, decreasing chances of splitting notes significantly in comparison to like 99% of any other euphoniums I've tried. Let's move on to the tuning. The euphonium is very well tuned within itself. The relation between semitones and tones is pretty accurate for all the ranges. I could not use the tuner in loud environment to show you that, guys, but if you have any trust for my ears, well, you just have to take my word for it, I guess. Obviously, you'll still need to listen for a pitch to get it right, but generally it will not require lipping up or down when you play alongside well-tuned instruments such as piano or strings. That being said, if I was ever to get this model, I would for sure have a trigger installed on it for wind band playing and brass band playing, but that's just my preference. All in all, tuning on E3 was really good, and I know that Adams do offer a trigger option, so I give a thumbs up for the tuning. The next thing I will discuss here is going to be valves. And with all fairness, there isn't much I have to say here. Valves were extremely smooth. Valve tops were very comfortable. I couldn't feel any stiffness or anything that would bother me about the valves. They worked quietly, so definitely a thumbs up for E3 valves. The only thing I cannot comment on would be the durability of the valve guide, since I haven't owned a Adams Euphonium long enough to tell, but I haven't heard any negative feedback on it yet, so I'll assume there aren't any issues there. Next, we move on to the design. The Euphonium was pretty light, which made it easy to hold on to, and the lead pipe had a nice angle, making it easy to align the mouthpiece to your face while holding the instrument upright and not too far away from your body. Visually, it also looked pleasing to the eye, so another thumbs up for E3. Generally, I thought Adams E3 Selected was a well-rounded instrument, and even though it wasn't my favorite Adams model, it was definitely a high-quality euphonium I would be okay recommending to you guys. The price listed in the Adams booth stood at $7,430 US, which was a pretty reasonable price. It is definitely not a cheap instrument, but in my opinion it was superior to some of the other euphoniums I've tried, which were closer to $10,000. Let's move on to Adams E2 with heavy valve caps. This particular model, alongside one other instrument that I'll be discussing in the future video, was the most impressive euphonium I've tried at the DC Expo. Probably the most well-rounded model out of all Adams I've tried, and let me tell you exactly why. The sound was very open and dark, which is typically what you'd be looking when buying a euphonium, but unlike all of the other Adams models, E2 with heavy valve caps seemed to have the dynamic and low register issue sorted. I purposely tried overplaying the volume and the sound would not break at all. Low notes were extremely open and full, sound was really awesome, definitely a thumbs up for the sound quality and projection. The centering and accuracy was absolutely fantastic in both super high and extremely low ranges. Of all heavy projecting euphonium models I've tried, it falls right into my top 2 easiest euphoniums to play on. So definitely a thumbs up for accuracy and centering. I thought the tuning was really good. Adams advertised it as being perfect, which in my opinion is quite an overstatement, but it's definitely as good as the euphonium tuning gets, so if you were to tune it to piano or strings, you're pretty much good to go. Again, if it was me, I would personally be playing one. I would definitely like to have a trigger install, which is optional of this model. Generally, another thumbs up for the tuning and intonation. Next we have valves. Again, not much to say about it. Very smooth, quiet, comfortable for fingers, didn't notice any rattling or other unwanted noises. No comment on valve guides, but I have no reason to assume that there are any issues there. A definite thumbs up here. Design was pleasing to look at and was definitely made to be comfortable to play on. Very much enjoyed the way it felt in my hands, was easy to align with my face. Fourth valve was comfortable to reach, and it was very light, which definitely allows you to hold it upright longer without fatiguing your shoulders. The price at the booth was $7,030 US, which in my opinion is a very reasonable price. Again, there was only one other model which I thought could stand in terms of the price to quality ratio, so definitely my top 1 or at least close top 2 pick for the best instrument I've tested at the expo. With that in mind, let's move on to the remaining models. The next one in the line is Adam's E1. I've tested 4 different models of E1, which was E1, E1 Selected Sterling Silver, E1 Custom with Trigger, and E1 Antique. There were some really interesting and cool qualities to this particular model, but out of all 3 different models I've tried, I was least impressed with E1. So let me break down exactly why I came to this conclusion. The sound was generally a little thin and very sensitive to volume increase. I would not describe it as a bad sound by no means, but it was not something I would expect when I think about my ideal euphonium sound. This is based on my personal preferences, but here's my logic behind this. Look, euphonium is not the most projected instrument out of brass family. You cannot replicate high frequencies that trumpet or horn will create, or give that bassy feel that tuba creates. So it also does not really tune well with other brass instruments, or as well as, for example, trombone, let's say, does. So pretty much the big ace card for euphonium is the beautiful, warm, dark sound, which could imitate either cello or operatic singer. Now, you take away that and euphonium kind of loses its place, because now you either better using trombone, or if you need a valve facility, you would be better probably just getting a nice baritone horn. I could see whether where E1 would work in specific scenarios such as jazz, tango, maybe certain chamber music, but projecting and creating the stereotypical euphonium sound in bands would be a big issue with E1, at least in my opinion. That being said, I could not say it was bad quality sound, just something I would not prefer personally. When it comes to accuracy and centering, E1 is again equal to none, extremely easy to play on. Fantastic response time, and if I ever had a vision of what a perfect instrument would feel like playing on, it would be probably close to what I would pick. A massive thumbs up for the accuracy and centering. Moving on to the tuning, it was pretty consistent throughout all the 3 models. E1 was no exception. It was well tuned within itself, and I could see it being very easy to tune with piano or strings. One of the models had trigger, which was something I really liked. It was pretty smooth and comfortable, so that was nice. However, I tried asking the guys who worked at the booth, but it seemed that trigger was increasing the overall price of the model tremendously, which did not make all that much sense to me. However, as I mentioned, it is something that I really incorporate into my playing a lot, especially in my band playing particularly, so that's something I really advocate. With all that in mind, another thumbs up for intonation. Valves, well, nothing much to really say on valves apart from the fact that they worked well consistently on all 3 models. Valves on E1 moved nice and quiet, were comfortable to reach and place fingers on, so thumbs up. Let's move on to the design. The design of the instrument was really pleasing to the eye. I kind of liked the look of E1 Antique. It looked pretty badass. The instruments were extremely light, making it comfortable to hold, so I had no issue with the design at all. Overall, E1 was a really fun euphonium to mess around with, simply because it's so light and easy to play on. E1 Custom Sterling with trigger was probably the one I liked the most, but the price was whopping $9,195 US in comparison to $8,355 for E1 Selected Sterling Silver or $7,035 for E1 and E1 Antique. I could kind of see where this euphonium would work really well, but it would have to be a very specific circumstances, and I think it would be cool euphonium for complete beginners and kids just because of the fact it's so light and easy to play on, but I would not be comfortable recommending starting player a euphonium worth of $7,000 or $9,000 US. Lastly, E3 with heavy valve caps was not on the display at the Adams booth, but Brandon Jones, who is the US Army band euphonium player and Adams artist, offered me to test his instrument. I will refrain from saying all that much on this particular model simply because of the fact it was the end of the expo and I had already tested like 1,000 of different euphonium models for 5 minutes each. My head was shutting down and I couldn't even think straight anymore. My first impression was that I definitely liked it better than a regular E3 selected, just because the sound would not break, but at that point I really could not tell whether E3 had any advantages in comparison to E2, except for it felt slightly more resistant. And I will say that with a huge question mark at the end, just because of the fact that I was so tired, I frankly could not be bothered anymore. With that in mind, E3 with heavy valve caps was definitely a close second for my favorite euphonium Adams model. All things considered, I was extremely impressed with Adams euphoniums. I thought the company made massive improvements to the quality of their instruments. It was not the most expensive brand either, and I would definitely put it as my top 5 euphonium brands I'd be happy recommending to advanced or professional players. And that is going to do it for today's video. I really hope you liked it and found it informative. If you think I missed out on something or just generally would like to tell me that you liked or hated my video, please leave a comment down below. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. You can also find me on Facebook or Twitter, and as always, thank you for your time watching. Stay safe, work hard, keep motivated. Until the next time.